This is Carrie at Golden Heart Ranch, and I'm excited to bring to you another art project this week. Today's art project is tissue color painting. So you might be wondering how we do that. And we're gonna be using some brightly colored tissue paper. You can see I've started some strips here, and white paper. I found that the thinner paper is actually better for this project. Cardstock didn't seem to take the color as well, just as an FYI. We also gathered a few other supplies. So you can see I've got a bunch of fun colored tissue paper here. I have scissors, so you have the option of either cutting the paper or you can just tear it in pieces. I have a Sharpie, white crayon, and then water to make the tissue paper wet so that it creates the art. So I have a bowl of water which I could dip the tissue paper in, or you could use a squirt bottle. And then I have my white paper, of course. So the Sharpie would be used for if you wanted to put a design on the paper before we started painting with the tissue paper, or you could use it at the very end when everything is dry and you could put a design on top of the tissue paper design. The white crayon, kind of the same idea, but a different look. You could draw a design on the paper with the white crayon, and then we'll do the tissue paper painting. And then when it's all done and dry and we remove the tissue paper, then that white crayon design will kind of pop out and look really fun. So it's up to you how you want to do this project, but we're gonna get started. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is to prepare your tissue paper. So you're going to want to select the colors. So I've got a variety of colors here in front of me. And then you're going to want to either cut the paper into pieces or strips, or you can tear it and rip it. So that's going to be what I'm going to be doing next. So I've got a bunch more of the color paper cut into strips and pieces and ready to go for my art. So I'm going to take a sheet of my thinner white paper here. And for this one, I'm going to use a Sharpie. See what that looks like. And I'm just going to write a word on here. Maybe I'll write 2 words. So I wrote happy spring. I'm curious to see if the Sharpie will bleed a little bit when we get it wet. So I guess we'll find out. For the sample that I'm gonna show you guys at the end for the completion project, I did use the white crayon and I drew a design on that. That one is currently drying. Just a tip for you when you're completing this project, I did try to dry it outside, but because it's so warm outside, it dried too fast and the colors didn't have enough time to seep into the paper and really make much of an impact with the color. So I would recommend putting the project together, getting everything set, and then putting it to the side someplace safe indoors and letting it just kind of dry naturally. Once the white paper and the tissue paper are all dry is when it's ready to see what the final product looks like. Okay, so my next step is going to be getting the tissue paper wet. I'm gonna use the bowl of water. I liked this technique best when I was doing the samples. And so I'm just going to take a strip of the paper, and it doesn't really matter how I do it, get it wet and just put it right onto the paper. I did also find that if you do multiple layers of the paper, it tends to be a little bit more vibrant as far as the color. So you may either want to fold the paper or take 2 pieces together and put that on. So I'm just going to continue this process of getting these papers wet, dip them in my water here, and it gets wet really easily, and then layer them on. So you can see I'm just going to use a random pattern. I'm just going to get them wet, lay them all on here. I'm going to cover the paper around the happy spring pretty well, and then we will set it to dry. All right, so I'll be back. So what we have here is a really wet piece of paper with a lot of wet tissue paper on it. So I'm gonna carefully show you. I kind of let the corners dry so I could lift it. But this is my paper for now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on a drying rack so that it can dry both underneath and on the top. And hopefully we will have some nice vibrant colors that have transferred onto our white paper. So I can't wait to see what it looks like. And I will be back to show you one of the other samples that I created. This is the sample that I created earlier. And like I had said earlier, I used the white crayon and I drew a design on the white paper. It's a little hard to see white on white, but I was able to see kind of where the waxy color was. And then I just took the tissue paper and I made a fun design over what I had drawn. The paper is still damp, and as is the tissue paper underneath. So I'm gonna continue to let this dry. For the best color results, we wanna make sure it's completely dry top and bottom before we take the tissue paper off. And like I had said before, putting it outside, it dries too fast and it doesn't give the colors enough time to transfer to the paper. The last note is, again, if you have something called bleeding tissue paper or tissue paper that doesn't have wax in it, it will work better and give you more vibrant colors. This one is gonna look a bit more like a lightly watercolor painted art, which is still fun and exciting, but it will look a little bit different if you have tissue paper that bleeds a little bit more, or when it gets wet, it transfers the colors a little easier. Another option is if you just like decorating with the tissue paper and you don't care to have it dry and then flake it off, what you could do is mix part glue, like Elmer's glue, and part water, probably like a 1-to-1 or maybe even a little less of the glue. Mix it up really well, and then you could dip the strips into the water glue mixture and then place the design on your paper, and then it will just stick, but it will still look really fun and it will give you kind of a stained glass effect actually. If you have wax paper at home, that would make it clear, and that'll look really fun up on the window sill, or up on a window, or just in an area that has a lot of light. Or you could do it on white paper as well, because if you do it on thin white paper and then you put that up to like glass where the sun shines through, you're still gonna get kind of some of that stained glass effect, which will be fun. So you have a couple of options to do the tissue paper painting. So I will be back when this is completely dry and I will show you what the finished product looks like. See you guys in a bit. So I have tried a couple of times with the tissue paper that I had to get a good color outcome, and I've had a little bit of a struggle. And I think part of it is the tissue paper that I have is recycled, so I don't think it has as much of the dye in it, and it feels a little bit waxy. So I kind of went through my tissue paper and I found a couple of different options that didn't feel as waxy or as smooth. So I'm gonna try a different design. I'm going to use a white crayon and I'm gonna draw a wave, and then I'm gonna use, I have 3 different shades of blue tissue paper, and I'm gonna kind of fill that in, and we'll see if that becomes a more colorful design. So bear with me as we go through this process together and try to come up with a fun, interesting work of art. Well, it looks like 3rd time's the charm. I think I found some tissue paper that works a bit better. As you can see, my fingers did get some color on them, so this is definitely tissue paper that marks and makes more color, or bleeds, as they say. You can see the water also got some color into it, so it's definitely working a bit better. This is the paper, so you can see here. And you can see there's color on my table, which I'm gonna clean up here shortly. Thankfully, it's a craft table. So I'm gonna get this on the drying rack and I'm gonna let this dry. And I'll show you the difference between the non-bleeding tissue paper and the bleeding tissue paper once this is dry. Okay, so here's the finished artwork. I'm gonna show you all 3. So this was the first one. This one's on cardstock, and it was using the original tissue paper that I had that was recycled and a little bit waxy, so that you can tell the colors didn't transfer as vibrantly as I had hoped, but it still looks fun. So then the next one I did was on a thinner paper, and I had written the words Happy Spring, and you can see that on the thinner paper more of the color transferred, but it still wasn't quite as vibrant as I had hoped for. So then I found different tissue paper, and this one definitely transferred a bit more, but you couldn't see the crayon anymore. The crayon kind of went away. So I took my Sharpie and I outlined the wave on the paper. So this tissue paper definitely worked a lot better. If you guys do try out today's art, please post pictures on social media and tag #MyGHR. I can't wait to share another video with you next week, and we hope to see all of our ranchers back at the ranch very soon. Take care, stay safe, and be healthy, everybody. Bye.